Welcome everyone to our second official Wood County WorkLink Lunch and Learn series. Today a lot of us are very excited to learn more about Vanpool. Vanpool is one of the tools in our toolkit when we're looking at solutions for employee commuting solutions and also workforce mobility in Wood County. So we are very happy to have Anthony Torrey with us today, and he's going to introduce himself. So Anthony, why don't you go ahead and just tell us where you are located, your title, and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Callie. Well, my name is Anthony Torrey. I am the Commute with Enterprise Account Executive for the state of Ohio. I've been with the company about 5 years now. Most of that time has been spent in our rental division, where I worked my way up to a branch manager. Then I made a brief transition into our car sales market before finding myself home here in our commute division. I got to say, I'm really passionate about what I do. And just as a small fact about me, I do live on a small farm out here in rural Ohio where sustainability and reliable transportation is really the key to success. And I do know that I feel like vanpooling is a way of the future, and I just think that spreading awareness to vanpooling is going to be key. So that's why I'm here today, is to try to give you a little bit more background and information on vanpooling in general, and just to answer any questions that you may have, because I know that some of you may not be really familiar with the concept. And also joining me today is also Brooke. So Brooke, if you want to go ahead and just do a quick introduction for you.
Yeah, my name is Brooke Kimmett. I am the Commute Sales Manager for Commute with Enterprise in the Midwest. So I oversee and support the sales team from Michigan all the way over to Utah. Been with Enterprise for 10 years. I was in the car rental side, truck rental, and then actually started Commute with Enterprise in the state of Indiana, which is currently where I sit. And then I've been overseeing the sales team in those markets for the last 4 years. So excited to see you all today and have you guys learn a little bit more about our program.
Great. Thank you so much, Anthony and Brooke, and we'll get a chance to talk to you in a few minutes. For this first part of our Lunch and Learn, I invite you to go ahead and keep your microphones muted so that we can hear each other well and so that we can get this good information from Anthony. Anthony has given us a little video to watch first, and then we will just dive into the questions after that. I am recording, so just so you're aware, we are planning to share this video along with our other Lunch and Learn series on the Wood County WorkLink website. So it's also a chance for you to share this information with your colleagues and others you think might be interested later. We'll have that so they don't need to be here in person today. Great. All right, without further ado, I believe most of you can see the screen I'm sharing. Is that true? The screen that says Unlocking Employee Potential Through Targeted Commuter Programs. Okay, that is the title, and we're going to go ahead and start that now. And if anyone has trouble with sound, go ahead and send a note in the chat.
Thank you for being able to join us today. My name is Anthony Torrey, and I am the Account Executive for Commute with Enterprise for the state of Ohio. Today, we'll be talking about our Vanpool program here in the Toledo market with TARTA that will be unlocking employee potential through targeted commuter programs. Here is the agenda for what we will be covering today. We will start off with the commute business overview. We will then move to some of the modern commuting trends that we are seeing today. We will talk about our vanpooling solution and what that entails. And finally, how the support and implementation will take shape. Just to give you some background on our company, we are a branch under Enterprise Mobility. I'm sure you will have all heard of, or at least all familiar with Enterprise Rent-A-Car, or have at least seen the name Enterprise on the side of a box truck in passing.
Sorry.
These are all just some of the few business lines that fall under the umbrella.
Oh, I am so sorry. Sorry about that, Anthony.
Enterprise Mobility. Commute with Enterprise is one of these business lines that stems from Enterprise Mobility, and that is what I'm here to talk about today. Commute with Enterprise. Commute with Enterprise has been around for 30 years and was born to give employers and commuters flexibility, and the support they need to transform the daily commute into a positive part of their day. As the country's largest vanpool provider, we're always working to make the ride to and from work easier, more affordable, and better for the planet. Today, we have over 10,000 vanpools and 60,000 riders nationwide that help eliminate 50,000 vehicles off the road each workday. These vanpools help eliminate over 1.2 billion commute miles annually, contributing to 909 million pounds of carbon dioxide reduced and $724 million in commuter savings each year. Of course, we don't do this alone. We partner with public transit agencies like TARTA to offer funding and extended transit programs in over 100 markets. Now that you have a little bit of an idea of who we are and where we came from, let's look at some of the modern commuting trends that we have noticed in the market today. Starting off, we have economic pressures. U.S. inflation is contributing to economic uncertainty, which means businesses and consumers are seeking value beyond price. Consumers have a heightened sensitivity to costs in today's economy, which can mean opting for more affordable modes of transport or searching for the best value. Then we have return to office. Hybrid workers demand more flexible mobility solutions. The return to on-site work can impact employees' finances, added mileage and wear and tear on personal vehicles, increased fuel consumption, and time lost in traffic can start to add up. There is a preference for driving. Commuters value convenience and personal space. Many commuters have a strong preference for driving because of the convenience and independence. However, this preference is challenged by rising fuel costs, parking issues, and safety challenges resulting from aging personal vehicles. Aging personal vehicles also pose cost, safety, and environmental challenges. In addition, we have the rising influence of millennials and Gen Z. Millennials and Gen Z are becoming more dominant forces in the market, bringing with them unique needs and preferences. These generations value technology, integration, environmental consciousness decisions from brands and their employers. 70% of millennial job seekers want to see a company's commitment to sustainability. Let's look at some of the data behind the trends. More and more Americans are worried about maintaining their cost of living. On average, employees spend 19% of their annual salary on their commute. Transportation in general is the number 2 household expenditure, right behind housing. In fact, the average cost per mile just to own and operate a vehicle was 56 cents per mile plus. For those seeking lower cost or shared options for their increasingly long commutes, the answer isn't always easy. Public transit systems are limited to urban city centers and the surrounding suburbs, leaving nearly half of the U.S. population out of reach. Without options for lower cost and reliable transportation, commuters are left to rely solely on their aging and high-cost vehicles to get them to and from work. These trends can also impact employers. The more obvious cost for employers is facility costs. Owning and managing space for employees to park their cars can add up quickly, up to $28,000 per spot. Think about that. That's a lot. As commuter needs and expectations evolve, employers can also experience costs that aren't so obvious. After getting a taste of remote work perks during the pandemic, employees are looking for more flexibility in their day. As a result, the commute has become the top reason to prefer remote work and can even lead employees to quit their job. These actions contribute to indirect costs for organizations, up to 3 to 4 times hiring salary to recruit new talent. The growing length of communities and related congestion not only disrupts daily productivity, but also contributes to a broader economic impact. Nationwide, we lose 4 billion hours to traffic jams each year, averaging 42 hours per driver, which is equivalent to an entire work week. This congestion translates into approximately $70 billion in lost time and productivity annually. So, how do we solve these commuting trends that commuters are struggling with today? That brings us to our solution of vanpooling. The model that I'm primarily going to discuss today is our traditional model. Let's take a look. So let's start off with the basics. What exactly is vanpooling? Vanpooling is simple and easy. It works like carpooling, but has more advantages. We connect employees together and provide a recent model SUV or van with 7 or more seats. We work with the group to find a convenient meetup spot, typically a park and ride lot or where you can leave your cars. The group works together and rotates driving. The more drivers, the better, but participants can choose to just be a rider as well. Best of all, the commute group enjoys all the benefits of sharing a ride, and through commute, we provide everything they need for a safe and reliable commute. We provide the insurance and protect the vehicle. We also handle the maintenance and roadside assistance. Participants can self-serve through our mobile app, but they also have an option to reach out to local assistance from one of our representatives, such as myself. Why does vanpooling work? First and foremost, it's needed. From the changing commuter landscape to the rising cost of living, or to the evolving needs and expectations from employees. Second, it's measurable. From the online rider impact dashboard, which they can view every day, to quarterly updates we provide on the program's impact. It's impactful. Not only does it save money, but it reduces carbon footprint, and it is the recruitment and retention solution. Not to mention, it's easy to implement. We help to align a plan forward, we help promote the program, and we take the wheel and drive change. So you may be asking yourself, how would you implement a program with you and your employees, or how would you get one started at your worksite? We know that there are no two people alike. Therefore, we know one solution won't fit everyone. That's why we start off by creating a customized plan to best benefit each employer and employee. We can create dedicated parking spots, review commuter benefits, funding, and budgets. We provide new rider onboarding by helping riders set up their accounts and get acquainted with features on their new vehicle. Transparent billing and budgeting. We have a monthly invoice review for the first 90 days, quarterly budget check-ins, subsidy consultation, and management. We provide on-site awareness and implement commuter connection meetings. We have dedicated fleet management and account management. We assist in new deliveries. We provide vehicle maintenance, fuel management, driver approvals and scheduling, as well as customized quarterly reviews and regular impact reports and employee insights. I know we've covered a lot of information. I would like to open up the floor to any questions that you may have. I've provided a QR code that you can scan with your phone that will provide you with some additional information on vanpooling. If you would like to reach out to either myself or Callie at TARTA to set up a private consultation to see how we can create a customizable solution to best fit you, please do not hesitate to reach out. Thank you all again.
You're on mute, Kelly.
Who is in charge? Okay, sorry everyone. So yes, I'm sorry, Anthony, I cut off your final thank you there.
Problem.
Wonderful information. Thank you so much. This is a really great start to our conversation today, and I just wanted to make sure that I'm leaving up that QR code for anyone who might be interested in getting that direct link to Commute by Enterprise. You can also find this link on the TARTA Vanpool page. If you just Google TARTA Vanpool, we only have one page about it, so it's not hard to find. You'll find the link there. And I will also be distributing that link later when I send around this recording. So let's get started on a couple of questions. I had a couple of questions. I was surprised. I actually impressed to hear that you guys are the largest Vanpool provider. I actually did not know that, so I'm glad to know that. You're also in 100 markets. That's very impressive. Brooke, I know your role heads up several Midwest states, so I think obviously a lot of us in the Midwest, we don't all look like Chicago, right? We don't all have that congestion pushing us to consider Vanpool as quickly. Okay. I'm curious though how you see other employers using this program to strengthen their programs in smaller Midwest cities, maybe.
Yeah, for sure. It's actually funny you say that because our Chicago market has the least of our units right now out of everybody else. So where a lot of it is being used for is reliable and affordable transportation. So we partner with a lot of employers, especially in those rural markets, to really focus on recruiting, retention, keeping those employees and widening their recruiting radius. I would say majority of the time are why folks are using us. But also, of course, the sustainability and parking comes into that. But, in the Midwest, a lot of our accounts are in those rural markets. That's hard to get a public bus line to go out there, or it's hard to recruit folks that maybe have to ride public transportation. So this is an option for them to be able to widen that recruiting radius. A few big names that folks probably know would be Tyson Foods. So they're a large account of us that use us to get those folks and to retain them. Also, JBS Meat Packaging. That's another one. But I would say a lot of that shift hourly workers do use us quite a bit because they're usually on that same schedule and they need that reliable and affordable transportation. And then I would say another thing as well that has really popped up in the Midwest is the folks are getting back into the workforce. So like from a reentry standpoint, or maybe they're new to America and they need transportation. So partnering with a lot of organizations to help provide transportation for them to their employers as well. So that's a few examples. I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. If I'm not mistaken, Tyson is near a state line too. If is that the one in Nebraska you're talking about? Isn't there a
So
big?
one in Nebraska, Cargill. We actually have one in the Cincinnati area of Ohio as well. I mean, all over. They're everywhere. Cargill's another big name that we have as well. We actually partner with like PSSI, so they do like sanitizing of these plants too. So a lot of those folks that just need that transportation to get there, or maybe aren't the most pleasurable jobs, if you will, the most desirable to get to and from.
That's great. Well, I like the concept that we can cross some of the boundaries. Sometimes we get locked in as transit professionals with our municipal and our county boundaries, and so it's nice to know that Vanpool can be a solution for outside of that. I liked also how you said that you're hearing a lot that it's an affordable solution for a lot of folks, and I know that that is probably going to be a major driver around Toledo as well. Just to reiterate, for those who aren't aware, TARTA is partnering with Commute by Enterprise to provide a 50% subsidy for any Vanpool journey that starts or ends in the TARTA service area. So I'm wondering if either Brooke, you or Anthony can talk a little bit about how you have seen Vanpool employees find value in a situation like that. Is it pretty common that there's subsidies, or is that?
Absolutely. I can answer that. I did see Gary had his hand up. Gary, you want to ask your question real quick?
Basically, it's what Callie led into for this question. So yeah, continue.
Yeah, very good. Well, I mean, just as kind of Brooke mentioned, initially vanpooling was established in some of those major metroplexes to help people get to and from and kind of reduce some of that congestion. But what we've been realizing is that it kind of excluded a majority of people getting to and from work. And that was those rural markets that kind of are outside of those transit lines that need to go from, maybe just 25 minutes outside of the city center into the city center. We've seen that not just in one city, but in cities across the nation. So ideally, this idea of Vanpool is the fact that you have a newer model vehicle that's going to be established to you. The insurance is going to be included with that vehicle, so you're not going to have any wear and tear on your own car. Plus, like say, for example, if you would get in an accident, that's not something that you guys have to worry about. The fuel cost can be included in this as well. So it really has that whole idea of just value built into the Vanpool itself. And we get it. Like there's some people that's not going to want to vanpool with other people. So the idea of the vanpooling solution isn't maybe necessarily valid for the entire workforce population, but even for 30% of those people can see value in it. We see people obviously buying new cars. You think, oh yeah, I just have my car. You have your car payment, you have your insurance and your fuel. Whereas this is kind of just a one-stop shop where you can still have your main personal vehicle at home, but the wear and tear and daily commute is something that we can actually provide on these van pools. And that's where we see a lot of value. A lot of people are interested in this that typically wouldn't first think of, hey, let me see if there's a van pool near me so I don't have to actually have that expenditure myself.
I was going to add on that a little bit too, to go a little bit into the costs and everything. So with employers, awesome partnership that we have with TARTA, that they're subsidizing 50% of the program. That's amazing. That's not everywhere. But a lot of times the way this works is we'll partner with an employer and we'll say, hey, this is what your employee scape looks like. Do you guys want to subsidize a portion as well? A lot of times we can slice it and dice it however you want. We can pay, bill it all to you, and you can pre-tax payable deduct a portion of it, all of it. You can cover a portion of it, all depending on what you guys want to do. I will say I see majority of people covering at least like 25% of it and then billing the employer from a pre-tax payable deduction on that. But really, what you guys want to make it is very flexible. So we can slice it and dice it however that employer wants to, or you can not be involved at all and just say, hey, come on site and let's form vans that way. And let's get folks into these vehicles, and they have to pay Enterprise directly. So it can be done multiple ways.
Wow, there's so much there, so many implications, and we love how customizable this is. I thought I would just mention that for those of us who are associated with the Wood County WorkLink study specifically, I want to give a couple of examples of what this might look like to an employer in Wood County, because some of them are in the TARTA service area. For example, anyone within the city of Rossford, which we have our major employer for the county, which is Amazon. We have an Amazon fulfillment center there. They are currently almost the largest employer, but they are building a second facility and will soon become the largest employer in Wood County, period. They are directly on the TARTA line, and so because of that, any of their employees would be eligible for a 50% subsidized van pool situation. And that would be true of any other business along, inside the TARTA service area on any route, or basically anywhere in the heart of town. We also have a situation in Northern Wood County where we have a very strong, we've seen in our data that there's a strong relationship between where the employees live and where they work. And many of the jobs in Northern Wood County are just outside the TARTA service area. And so those employers know that most of their employees live in a certain zip code, and they can see that they're within the TARTA service area. So I'm thinking of places in Northwood. I'm thinking of places in Perrysburg Township. This is very much the case for Northern Wood County. We see also from our data that at least a third and as much as 3/4 of the workforce up there is coming from Lucas County every day. So so just helping people kind of understand the repercussions of what we're talking about. If your employee lives inside the TARTA service area, then they are eligible for the 50% subsidy. Gary.
My question for Enterprise would be, I know in the slide you talked a little bit about the setup process. So with like a company that wants to do the Amazon, they want to do it, but they're just an administrator. How much assistance do you give them to set that up, to find out where those employees are, who might be willing, or is it more like the employees have to come to the company and say, hey, we want to be a part of this, we got our 5 friends and we want to do this? Or is it more, can you go to a company and then help them figure out, and reach out to the employees then to say, hey, we have this product, that Vanpool product that we can offer to our employees as an incentive, or something like that.
Right. Yeah, no, it's great because it's actually a combination of both. Ideally, if there's a group of employees that would like to establish a van pool, they can actually reach out to me or even to their work site to say, hey, this is something we would like to take advantage of. Ideally, it would be me reaching out to the company to try to get these van pools established so that way we can establish that work site. And I would be the one going to these companies and on these work sites and doing the information session, setting up these riders, gathering riders' information, gathering the data for the company to provide where these employees are located, how many van pools that they would like to establish, these corridors of opportunities where they could utilize this. And then actually the implementation phase too is like when they say, hey, you know what, we really want to do this, we can get those employees signed up. We can actually get the employers the benefits actually pre-tax deducted if they need to. And then obviously we still provide the remaining support needed to keep the program moving, which is like keeping the quarterly updates and also providing the sustainability facts and the data and the statistics, tongue twister on that as well. So.
Very good. I just heard something, and Paul, I see your hand. I'll finish my question, I guess, and I'll turn it to you. You said something in your video, Anthony, that I didn't catch when I listened to it before, and that was that in theory, you even made the point that some people don't like to talk to other people. Like maybe we're thinking about maybe a little bit of a Gen Z thing or millennial. They'd rather just do things on their phone. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They'd rather not have a big conference about things. And so is that functionality there where if an individual employee has 3 friends that they can literally sign up themselves online, arrange the pickup place, and kind of do this somewhat independently? Or is that something would you recommend that or not recommend that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Definitely recommend that. Obviously if it's an established work site and maybe someone says, hey, I would rather ride with 3 of my friends, they could reach out to us and we can get a new van pool established to them. All it just takes is just, 4 more people per 7-passenger vehicle, and we can get them on the road with their group of friends. Ideally, I think that sometimes just depending on where they're commuting to, it also has to make sense as long as they're kind of within that same range. But for the most part, yeah, it's easy to establish one, and these vehicles can be established as quickly as with a week or 2 weeks notice, and those things can be delivered and that can be on the road.
Great. Okay, Paul, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, quick question. So thanks for the presentation. I think it's really good information. And I love data. So I'm wondering a couple of questions related to that. Can you kind of, based on other regions that you work in, and that might be similar to Wood County or Wood County's proximity to Lucas County, can you tell us what's a sweet spot in terms of distance that people travel for using Vanpool? What's an average size? And I know you have different vehicles types, but just maybe, I don't know if there's any data you could share with us. I think that might be helpful for us to kind of understand I think intuitively we as Callie mentioned, sort of the travel flows, are many of them in Northern Wood County are coming from Lucas County. But I'm just curious, like that distance, if like somebody's 5 minutes away, 10 minutes away versus 40 minutes away, what's your experience with that? And then if you have any data to share, it would be really good.
Anthony, I can answer that one. So on average, when we partner with an employer, we usually do like a mapping analysis is what we say. And we usually map 10 to 15 miles out because we see that's usually the most ROI that they're going to get from, cost of ownership, fuel savings, all those things. I would say that's about the average, at least 10 to 15 miles out or more. I would say our average commute across the country right now is around 35 miles. So I would say, but we do have some folks obviously in some of those rural areas like the Nebraskas and Iowas that lead into those numbers. And then the average size of vehicles. So we do that 7-passenger all the way up to 15-passenger. I would say right now our fleet across the entire nation is around 60 to 70% being 7-passenger vehicles. Just people are a lot more comfortable driving those opposed to those big passenger vans, and they feel a lot more comfortable in those. So I think that's part of that. But we have some data. I don't have it right now, but we have some that we can send as a follow-up to Callie to share. But one cool stat too is majority of our Vanpools are out for 3 or plus years. So usually once folks are in the vans, they're staying in the vans.
Okay.
That's so
That's very
interesting.
interesting.
Yeah. So you're saying that a real sweet spot, in your opinion, is around that 10 to 15 mile commute, but that because of need across the country, you're seeing some as much as 35 miles.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah, I have one in Utah that they commute an hour and a half each way, but that's Utah, Montana, that area. Obviously, they're commuting pretty far away just because of the nature of the scope out there. But yeah, we have some pretty long commutes out there.
Well, if you have to commute that far, it would definitely increase your interest in sharing that cost, right? And the stress of that long commute. So that makes a lot of sense. I like to hear too that the 7-passenger vehicles are kind of popular. I could see that. I drive a minivan myself and find it very easy to get around in. So yeah, that's
Functionality is great. Plus you got that stow and go seat. So if you ever need some cargo in there, works out
Yeah.
great.
Right.
Right. Yes. And that and maybe Anthony, you can talk about some of the features that are common in your cars.
Yeah, so all these cars are going to be, they're very modern. So they're pretty much like brand new. So stuff that you can see, they have like Apple CarPlay. They do have, yeah, definitely room for snacks in there. They got Apple CarPlay. They got ample room. Some of the minivans even have like the climate control in the back. They have the heated seats, remote start. They have the heated steering wheel. So pretty much all the luxuries of these modern cars that you would typically like rent a car in, you would get the exact same kind of vehicle, but you can use for your everyday use. Gary, yeah.
How do you address, much like public transit, you take the bus, you're relying on that bus to get you back. How do you address that issue with that one vehicle at one location with, potential, up to 15 people?
Yeah, I mean that's great because I mean that's one thing that probably comes to everyone's mind is, with this program there is actually something called like an emergency ride home that riders can utilize up to I think like 4 times per year. There's an emergency ride home, like if something comes up, it's unscheduled and it's a reimbursable expense. So something like that you don't have to worry about. So
I also want to add to that, we know vanpooling isn't for everybody too. We say about 10 to 20% of our workforce will get into vanpooling. So we really try our best to make sure that we're pairing people with the right shift. We do see a lot of people, especially in these manufacturing shift hourly workers, the accountability, we see them being more accountable because other people are relying on them. But something we do make sure to do is that every vehicle has 2 approved drivers in there. So if someone's sick or not able to do it, that we also have another approved driver that can drive the vehicle. But you can have as many people as you want in the vehicle be approved to drive as well.
All right. I had a question. Anthony, you mentioned a little bit about this dashboard or sustainability goals. Are you seeing employers in Ohio use that for some of their internal accountability for sustainability? Are they what does that look like?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think pretty much in this day and age, there's almost no employer out there that's not worried about their sustainability or their carbon footprint that they're producing. So just part of the program that we do with every single rider, there's an impact dashboard that they can see and they can see their metrics that relates directly to themselves. And we provide those quarterly updates where we can see how the program's doing overall, how much money that each commuter has saved, how much carbon has been reduced, and obviously that feeds into their sustainability initiatives, and we just provide that data for them. It's just one less step that they have to do, and once that program's established, we just continue doing that every quarter.
One of my favorite things that I just learned from Anthony in the last week or two is that you can, as an employer, also choose to have a dedicated parking spot, with a sign that the Vanpool kids get to park here,
Absolutely.
And I think that's a nice idea, and it also helps to raise the awareness of the program, and it starts to plant the seeds so that maybe that, like you say, the 10 to 20% of people that this is going to work for can learn about it. So it's a little bit of a passive way to both underscore your own company's sustainability goals to your employees, because that's important again to a lot of millennials and Gen Zs, and Gen X's. It's important to me.
Well, when you see typically like your friends pulling up to a dedicated parking spot in the front when they have to, walk in with all their stuff, like through a parking lot, especially when it starts to snow, you say, hey, how can I get that benefit too? How can I get that prioritized parking?
Right. Absolutely. And we had some snow this week just to like underscore that idea.
That's why I brought that up.
Yeah. So getting down to the nuts and bolts, there's going to be lots of choices involved for an employer. And like you said, it can be pretty hands-off, meaning it sounds like the employer can almost just like turn it over to enterprise. Put up a pop-up table or something and kind of work with the employees yourself. They kind of, maybe the HR department sort of stands out of the way. They just maybe point to you. Or on maybe another end of the spectrum, they're integrating this, they're kind of owning the program, they're providing this as a huge benefit to the employees by pre-tax payment, or maybe even subsidizing it partially themselves. So you have quite a range, it sounds like, what you can work out with an individual employee.
Absolutely.
Do you have a preference? I mean, do you have any feedback for those folks who might be considering it? Like, again, a sweet spot, a best practice, a kind of like way that you see it working out kind of in a more optimal way?
Do you want me to take that, Anthony,
Yeah,
or you got it?
if you want, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I see the most success with a few things. So initially, we need the employer's buy-in because obviously employees see when their employer cares about them. So I would say that's the number one thing. But where I kind of see the sweet spot is not someone completely paying for the whole program, but offering at least 50% of it. So like I said, let's just say it's $50 a week. Pre-tax pay will deduct 50 from their paycheck or 25 from their paycheck, and you guys cover 25. Usually I see that to where they have a little bit of skin in the game. Those are our most successful programs. But I would say what we prefer for sure is having that, HR team, operations leader buy-in to help us kind of get that mapping data, see where folks are coming from. You guys only know your workforce way better than we're going to know. Does it work communicating with a survey link with a text, or do they have shift leads that they do weekly meetings, and would that be a good time for us to come on board? Does it make sense for us being in the lunchroom? So we really kind of lean on you guys at the very beginning on like what makes sense from a marketing standpoint, and then from there we're here for you to use us. So we'll come on site and we'll do directed targeted meetings if that's what works. We'll talk to shift leaders. We'll go into the lunchroom. All the things that you guys think will work. We'll bring food. But really, it's all up to you guys and how it works for your workforce. But then from that, we kind of come up with a plan and we say, okay, this is what we're going to do. What's our goal? How many vans do we want to try to get started? How many people? And then some people say, hey, we want to see how this works. We're going to pilot 2 vans for a couple of months, and then from that, we're going to launch it to everybody else. So that's usually where I see a lot of success, just from my experience. But Anthony, if you want to talk about the local market.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, Brooke, you pretty much covered it, exactly what I was going to even mention myself. But, you can pretty much be as hands-on or hands-off as you like. I mean, ideally with the sweet spot being is that most employers do kind of contribute to these programs, or sometimes they even contribute to a portion, like maybe paying the fuel expenditure on that, because they really see success in this. And they see these vehicles as being a driver for their not only sustainability, but for their retention initiatives, and obviously for their recruitment as well, because they can offer this as a benefit that maybe not many other employers are offering. And just not only that, but there's just high success when these programs, once they're established and the ridership is there, that they're on the road for quite some time. And there's typically more complaint when those programs start to like fade out, or if they say, hey, we want to get rid of a couple vans, or we're done with that. People are really kind of upset because they're like, this is like my van. I really like this program. Can we keep this? How can we keep this going? So we really see a lot of buy-in from the employee side as well.
And I want to just make a quick definition here of what makes Vanpool different than, say, like a company shuttle. And that is that in order for Vanpool to be Vanpool, it needs to be employee-led. So that's what makes it a little bit different than, say, your company hiring a driver to go and, say, pick up employees from their home. So there's a subtlety there. And in order to receive the TARTA subsidy anyway, that's the model that we are looking at, is the employee-led, but HR and company assisted model, if that makes sense. All right. I have talked a lot. I'm wondering if there are any folks who've kind of been harboring a question and haven't been bold enough to raise their hand. Are there questions out there? Because I definitely know there's lots of things to think about here.
And feel free to type some stuff in the chat if you like to. If you don't want to speak out loud, you can type that in. But Kelly, one thing I'd also like to just touch base on too, that we really haven't covered just yet, is that these vehicles, when they are delivered, they can either be stored at, a personal house where they are going to actually start that van pool in the morning. They can be stored at maybe like a centrally agreed on mutual location. Like say they want to go to like a Big Lots parking lot in the morning because that's central for everyone. It's convenient. Then that vehicle can stay there and they can just alternate the key between drivers as well. So, that vehicle essentially is established to that van pool and it's kind of like their own vehicle. And all the maintenance and fuel and everything like that, we help get established at a shop. So that way it's really hands off from those individual riders. Obviously, they can reach out to me or to my operations manager, Tim. We can get those things addressed. And, if there's any damage on these vehicles or if they're in an accident, obviously the insurance is covered. So the employee's not liable. We can just issue another vehicle. I mean, it's really a seamless process. Once these things are established, it's like, for me, coming from where I'm at, I think that's like a no-brainer. I think this is like, there's more positives than there's any kind of cons.
I'm glad you brought up Tim because I think it's kind of fun to know a little bit about the background or where these cars are coming from. Why don't you tell us what Tim does and how he maybe works and with maintenance and then also gets the cars to the locations?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Tim, his name is Tim McNulty. He's the operations manager for Ohio. So he oversees pretty much the entire state. Ideally, if someone would like to establish a van pool, they'd reach out to me. I would go ahead and get that all orchestrated and let Tim know, hey, we have a van pool that needs to be delivered to Toledo. And then the group decides on where this van's going to be delivered to, whether that's going to be to someone's personal house or whether that's going to be to a company or any mutual spot. We will get that organized and Tim will get that vehicle delivered to them. And obviously for any kind of like maintenance needs, they can manage it through the app or they can just call Tim or me. And, I can pretty much just handle it from there. And we, like I said, we manage the state of Ohio. So it's a very personal level. And we get to know a lot of these riders, my first name, last name, and it's just easy to communicate with because there's always an open line of communication via text, phone call, email, through the app, whatever's convenient for them. We try to fit it in, and these maintenances when they need to be done, we schedule a shop that's convenient to the group. So if the group says, hey, I like, use this shop over here on the corner because this is right before work and it's easy, we will call and we'll get that scheduled for the riders to go in. And then the riders just have their appointment time set. They drop the vehicle off. They can either go to work, they can wait, whatever they established, and it's taken care of from there.
And do those reminders come through the app as well, like for service and things like that?
They do. They do that because typically this data is recorded from the mileage. So based on the mileage that these vehicles are commuting to daily, there's an estimate of when the oil change should be done or an estimate of the actual interval that preventative maintenance should be done at. Obviously, it's flexible. Like maybe someone can't get it done like today. Maybe it's going to be next week. That's A-okay. But it'll just typically be done in a certain window. And at no cost, too. It's already included.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
all the
I
stuff
think
like flat tires too. Sorry, Cal, I didn't mean to cut you off. But stuff like that. Like if you get a flat, you can just take it to one of these accounts. And again, there's no expenses cost in that. There's 24/7 roadside. So say they did get a flat on the ride to work. We can get that tow truck out there. We can have it towed to a shop, have it repaired, have it back on the road. Or if it's say deemed non-drivable because it's due to an accident, we'll just take that vehicle and we'll just establish a new one to the group.
wow. Sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions out there?
I've got a question. So I'm curious to know. I mean, it sounds great. I'm sure things always happen in these van pools, right? So what is, let's just a scenario where you start up a van pool and everybody's really excited and it's a regular thing. Something happens and three or four people sort of drop out of it for various reasons, whatever. Is there like what do you do in that situation? I'm assuming you can sort of work with that employer to try to find more people, but is there like is there a minimum number of folks in a van pool? And like I'm just curious like how you work. I'm sure there are some
Yeah.
challenges with this too. And I don't want to, I mean, it all sounds amazing and great for most people, but I'm sure things happen. And I'm just curious what you do in that situation.
Absolutely. I mean, that is the whole idea of the hands-off approach. As we do take a lot of that burden onto us, that we can do a lot of that footwork. In order to keep a van pool funded, we do need at least 4 riders, especially in a 7-passenger vehicle. So when ridership does fall below a certain threshold, we would like to see if we could try to get that van pool ridership back up to 4 riders in any way, shape, or form, whether that means trying to consolidate a couple routes if that makes sense based on where they're located, whether that means coming on site, talking with the employer and trying to get more information or more awareness to the employee population, or just even holding like town halls and seeing if we can implement any other incentive that we can actually keep the riders incentivized to keep in these van pools. And I mean, ultimately, if the ridership is not there and it falls below the minimum threshold, the van would be terminated. But in other case, I mean, we don't really see that happening that often due to the fact that we have such a large employee population that loves these van pools, that really likes to see these things be installed. And not only that, but to keep them continued. And so 9 times out of 10, if someone maybe does say like they find another job, or, that they're not going to be working at the company any longer, that they are able to find their friends who live locally that can actually join that van pool and still commute to a central location. And maybe that central location is directly across the street. So we can have that rider tag along for a couple of weeks or a couple of months until a permanent rider is found in that van. And then they can actually be dispersed into their own van pool if they have more riders at that work site, just to kind of fill some empty seats. So there's definitely some tools at our disposal that we can try to keep that ridership right where it needs to be.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. So I have another question related to that. So do you see situations where it may not be a single employer, but where you have multiple employers that are involved? And I'm thinking like, retail or hospitality, where maybe you don't have enough for a single van pool, but if you group a bunch of places together, have you seen situations like that? And how does that work
Yeah.
out?
Absolutely. I mean, and that's so great, is because we have so many customizable solutions that is definitely an option. So if employers would like to contribute in that case, they can, or maybe employers are saying employees would like to just contribute that so they can actually utilize that benefit themselves. That is an option too. So like, especially if you're going to a shopping center and that everyone is going to be locally in the same vicinity, they can agree to essentially end at one location, and they can all, especially depends on like shift times and things like that. Maybe someone's going to wait 30 minutes or an hour, there's always some flexibility there, but they can just decide that as a group, and then that group can just be implemented. And essentially that's how it can be too.
Okay, cool. Thank you for
Gary,
that.
yeah, go ahead. Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, my question is the cost for the van pool for the vehicle, or is it for, so like am I paying $50 a month, especially if there's not any, company subsidy, so I'm always paying you, if it's 15 people van pool, I still pay $50 a month, something like that. Or, if it drops down to, 5 people, I'm still paying $50 a month, or is it for, I'm paying a cost for the whole vehicle?
Yeah, exactly. It depends on how it's set up, because for just if you're looking at a traditional like 50% subsidy that's going to be provided, that remaining portion is just for the van pool itself. So it depends on how much fuel that van pool is actually going to be utilizing every day. It depends on how many miles that they're also going to be commuting to and from. But essentially, the remaining cost is going to be split between the participants. So ideally, the more participants you have, the less your portion is going to be. The less participants you have, the more your portion can be. And that's excluding any kind of incentive from the employer. So it just depends on also the group's cost of every vehicle, which they would like to choose. They can also have a customizable cost based on what they like to see or features or necessities that they want to use on their daily commute.
I was really surprised to learn that that the program is that flexible that you can say, no, I want a Tahoe, not
Minivan.
Chrysler Pacifica or
Yeah.
something like that. Like you can be picky, but you'll actually pay a little bit more probably for something that you might like, and that the group itself can make that decision. It's not um, often made by the employer, or do the employers get involved sometimes and say like, no, we are just doing all minivans for us, or I mean,
Yeah. Honestly, we've seen it go both ways. Some say, "Hey, we're just
okay.
going to start with the minivans. We're going to pilot that." And obviously, with all groups changing, maybe they say, "Hey, we want to try a Tahoe for a month. Let's try it." They'd reach out to Tim, and a Tahoe would be established for the month, and they say, "Yeah, just not really liking the way that this thing is working," and they can go back to a van, no problem. So, obviously, it really just depends on that group need. Sometimes they say, "I like to sit up higher because it makes me feel more comfortable, and I'm going to be doing most of the driving. So that's what I want. Is it okay if everyone pays a little bit extra?" And some people say yes. And maybe that one person says, okay, then since I would like this, I'm going to go ahead and put this much up and then we'll spread the remaining cost for the remaining participants. So we've seen it. It's really so customizable. It's more or less like we just need to get these groups on board and just try to find out a starting location and we go from there.
Great. Well, you've given us lots to think about. I'm gonna press one more pitch out. Any more final questions? We're getting to the end of our time, but I think we've all covered a lot. Any final thoughts, or we've got Anthony right here.
And like I said, I got my information there and Callie's as well. So, if you guys think of something later, as typically I always would, you can reach out via email, text, phone call, however it's easier for you guys. We're more than available.
Great. Well, if there are no more questions, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up our lunch and learn for today and give just a huge thanks to Anthony for all the preparations that you put into this. We really appreciate this. We appreciate having a name and a person that we know is running this program. And I'm going to put myself out there too, that now you know that you can reach out to TARTA as well. We have a website. If you Google TARTA Vanpool, you will learn more, and you can also get that link straight to Commute with Enterprise. And we look forward to meeting with a lot of you individually. We've already set up meetings with some of you. So Anthony and I would generally come together for a first meeting, just so that you have TARTA and Commute with Enterprise both and in the house, and then go from there. Like Anthony mentioned, one really nice way to start our meetings also is with a general idea of maybe your employees' zip codes. It gives you kind of a working idea of what this could look like for you. So if you can get those zip codes to us in advance, that's something we can even bring to a first meeting to get a kickstart to kind of visualizing and talking, kind of nuts and bolts of what this might look like and how you would move forward with your own employees. So that is our starting point. And of course, we have had, just for your information, we have had contracts in the past, but the program's a bit underutilized. TARTA hasn't, since COVID, we haven't put a lot of marketing into this, and that's probably why you haven't heard about it. But we are happy to provide this if it feels like it's a good fit for your company, and happy to try to improve that quality of life for your employees. So thank you so much for coming out, and feel free again to reach out to any of us, and have a great day.